This episode of Hack5 is brought to you by Domain.com. Hello everyone out there and welcome to your weekly dose of Technolust. My name is Shannon Morse and this is Greg. Greg is going to be my co-host today because I've been having some trouble finding... There he is! Darren! Hey, welcome back!
Greg looked lonely. I thought I would
Greg was a
help him
little
out.
lonely. You know, he was a good co-host, but people just had some trouble hearing his audio.
They need to tune into the carrier frequency, you know what I'm saying?
So I thought it would be good to... Hi, it's good to see you, man!
Likewise, so good to be back.
How was Europe?
Fantastic. I got to, it was really fun in that I had the opportunity to revisit some of the hackerspaces that I saw last time and see how things have changed over the last couple of years, which was really insightful because the last time I was there, it was on a diplomatic mission for Alderaan and the ITU doing awesome stuff with telecommunications, and since then, I don't know, Snowden's happened. So lots of fun things happening in the hackerspace sphere, especially in Europe.
I guess it has been that long.
It's 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
And we live in a different world now, thanks to that awesome whistleblower. So it's very cool.
I've been meow 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 meow.
I love that. This is going to be stuck in my head like all day.
This is my Pop-Tart cat.
I love your Arduino-powered Pop-Tart
I'll talk about
cat.
that in a sec, but first, you have a bunch of stuff going on with you.
Well, it's not just me. Like, in touring hackerspaces, one of the things that I love to see was like all of the projects that I've like, hey, I've seen that on HackADay and stuff like that. So I wanted to bring it up because it turns out that this week is very apt that the new HackADay Prize is going to be announced. That is, the prize to either win a trip into space or $196,000.
What?
The winner from the 2014 prize was so cool. It's called SatNogs. It's an open source ground station to be able to speak to satellites.
Whoa.
The dream is that one day, or at least this is my dream, that one day we can free ourselves from the dependence on the infrastructure that is owned by the corporations and the governments that get to decide how our packets are going to be abused and actually have our own, even if it is just, really low baud rate store and forward stuff. But it's
oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so some brilliant stuff is coming out of that.
Yeah.
I love that they're putting some money towards it, and I'm excited about this year's contest, which is about building something that matters. It's talking about building stuff for pollution, for food, for energy. I know that we are tinkering around with, I don't think it's going to be something like to submit, but stuff
whatever,
along those
I want to go to
lines.
Space, man. I'm going to submit it, and it will probably fail, but whatever.
Okay, well, HackADay.io/prize. Just thought I would plug that because, they're doing really awesome stuff. And you know what? Speaking of awesome stuff, you know what's ridiculously awesome?
Shift registers?
Shift registers.
Yes!
I saw on the doc, we use just like Google Docs on the back end to collaborate on this kind of stuff.
Easy.
And when I see like Shannon's project for the week, I got really excited because not just that Arduinos and electronics are fun, but like shift registers made a huge impact on this old supercomputer called Colossus. Which nowadays, this is why you should never name your supercomputers epic stuff, because then in retrospect, it's going to be like, oh, Colossus, I've got like an app that emulates that on my watch.
Oh, how cute.
But Bletchley Park, you guys are probably familiar with Alan Turing.
Yes.
Recently pardoned.
Yeah, he's my bro.
Yeah, and actually, epic story. We'll link in the show notes to some further reading on this. And the Government Code and Cipher School, which later became GCHQ. That machine was the Colossus Mark II, was like improved like orders of magnitude over the Mark I because of shift registers. So it's cool to see them being used now instead of breaking World War II era access codes, but to actually be used to make your Pop-Tart cat have rainbows coming out of its butt.
They're backwards, but hey, whatever, that's okay.
I should probably mention to the GCHQ ones there that I really like you guys.
So I also saw you in a Daily Tech News show by your friend Tom.
Yes.
Talking about your favorite is awesomest things that you saw over in Europe.
Well, I did mention that it was fun having the opportunity to revisit. I saw some new ones like in Berlin, but then I got to see some of the ones that had been before in Amsterdam and London. And it's just cool to see kind of like how things have changed and some of the trends and stuff. And one of them that I was really surprised about is the drones. I know we could have called it drone across Europe, but it's what I kept on running into, right? I went on there on holiday, as it were, to enjoy my birthday and fly around Berlin. I was not expecting to then do FPV racing in
that was cool.
for the first time ever in Amsterdam, or then also to run into London Aerospace and learn all sorts of cool stuff about nano FPV and stuff. So that was kind of a trend. I think there's a really big cross section too. As like, for instance, just yesterday I was at the FPV meetup in Berkeley, and most of those guys are sysadmins, right? So it's like, hackers, tinkerers, makers, sysadmins, net jockeys, whatever you call it, like nerds, and quadcopters or multi-rotors or UAVs or UAS or whatever you want to call it, drones. There's a huge crossover there. And one of the things that I'm really loving about it, not just that it feeds my 11-year-old desire to be a fighter pilot, but it's also like, it reminds me of building computers in the 90s. Aww. Unlike today where you get a, 11 millimeter gold-plated MacBook
with no ports.
With no port. Anyway, whatever.
Ooh.
So yeah, drones were huge. Also nanotech.
Yeah.
Really cool. And in fact, I wish that I got an interview with these guys to learn more about this. But basically, and this is something I'd love to revisit because I know that you're really interested in 3D printers.
Yeah.
It's this type of lithography, and I'm totally blanking now on what the name is, mono something something. But essentially, remember burning CDs back in the day? Burning DVDs. The way that
all the time.
The technology, the way that works is it uses this laser, and then there's a chemical reaction, and they would make these grooves or these pits, and those would be ones or zeros.
Yeah.
And then you've got all sorts of cool encoding techniques and stuff that go into that as well. But essentially, some really awesome hackers in Den Haag or The Hague in Netherlands have put together this ridiculous rig that is mind-blowing where you put in this substrate, right? And then using like microscope lens assemblies and off-the-shelf projectors, using UV light, you can create a chemical reaction that's going to turn that solvent into like a solid in certain areas, but not in others. Oh. So then when you clean it off, you now have a part 3D printed, right?
That's so weird.
Well, here's the coolest part. The machine, the like gears and mechanisms and the little tiny things they were printing sat on the head of a pin.
What?
Yeah, like nanotech. Like backyard nanotech.
That's so cool.
I know. So that was like, oh, this is just, what? You couple that with
that's so exciting.
SpaceNet. I do have to...
SpaceNet?
It's a... You know how I have a fun and interesting relationship with LDAP? I hate LDAP.
Yep.
But it turns out when appropriately implemented with Radius and other cool implementation techniques, you can build a Wi-Fi network that, using proper certificates and things of that nature, 802.11x, you can get good stuff whereby if I have an account at, say, the Hackerspace in Amsterdam, I can now go to the Hackerspace in The Hague or the Hackerspace in London, and each time I go there, my certificate is valid for their Wi-Fi networks because there's a chain of trust, because there's a federated network, which means like I'm like logging in Darren at my home Hackerspace, and this is so cool. It allows you to roam. I know that a lot of universities have like EduRoam for this sort of thing. Well, this is that for Hackerspaces, and it is proper enterprise level security for Wi-Fi, and I would love to see something like this set up for the ShmooCons, the DEF-Cons, the DerbyCons, because while it's really fun to go to the network, the network camp over at ShmooCon, and then wait for your WPA key to be generated. I mean,
it takes a while.
It would maybe be better if we just had that. And I just think it's the coolest thing when you also couple in what we were just talking about, the SatNogs stuff, right? I mean, there will be a day in our lives where it is inexpensive enough for a couple of hackerspaces and maybe some crowdfunding to actually put together not just a microsat that'll only stay in orbit for a few days, but like a full-blown, this is our network, you can't take it down until you shoot it down, US or China.
That's awesome.
Also stop that with the missiles, it's bad, it's creating space debris, and we don't like that. But a couple of those technologies in and you've got like federated access to our own infrastructure, and I think that really jives with me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. The other stuff that I saw was just a lot of Snowden posters everywhere for Asylum, just everywhere. And of course, Club Mate.
Club Mate.
which we will keep flowing. I found a distributor in the United States, so soon the Hak5 warehouse will. You don't even know. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like.
What is this? What is this?
Like horse urine and hay, but you're going to get used to the flavor, and you're going to love it.
Okay. Club Mate. I'm assuming this is a drink?
Yeah.
That looks like lemonade?
No, it's like yerba mate. Yeah, but
okay.
it's just good. It's good stuff. You guys know.
So while you've been gone, I have been actually working on installing the new cable for the warehouse.
It's been months. We've
Yeah.
been moved into the space for
Well,
months
it
now,
actually
deprived
has
of bandwidth.
taken me months because I've been working on it myself.
Yeah.
With the cable company, and I've been digging all the ditches for them. and
Have you?
everything.
Wait,
Yeah.
you've been digging ditches?
In heels.
What?
In heels.
Those are wedges.
Whatever.
But
I can't believe you know that. Why do you know that?
I have a girlfriend. You guys know.
Yeah, no, I haven't really been digging ditches, but yeah.
Are you sure? Because
Well,
this was
I mean, I know that there might be video of me digging
Mm-hmm.
ditches.
What are you just gonna dig it? You did
I
that?
dug the ditch.
When you
I'm
do
helping.
what?
I'm
What?
helping with the cable.
I think that you need to. When we're done with this shoot, you better get out there and keep digging.
We're getting internet.
I
Girl,
know.
'cause
This is why
we can't
I've been
get this
so
bandwidth
busy.
soon enough. In fact,
Sorry, I can't answer all your emails.
we need ideas too because we're about to have boatloads
Yes.
of bandwidth. They're gonna back up the bandwidth truck. It's a big truck.
It is a big truck.
Or
We
is it a
saw
series
it.
of tubes?
With a series
I
of
never
tubes.
remember. They are actually digging. They're literally like they've got to cross an intersection, so they're like tunneling through. And then here I am thinking like, ooh, think of all the cool stuff you're gonna get like mining through there. Like you might find some ore. And I'm like, uh-oh, Darren, you've been playing too much Minecraft.
Oh, that's bad.
But Minecraft would be one of the servers that we will run on the new Hak5 warehouse network that we hope that you will become a part of because we're gonna do shell
Fun.
accounts and bouncers and Jitsi stuff and Jabber XMPP and we need your ideas, so in the comments or in our feedback emails, as always, because we love to
Gaming
hear from you guys
servers.
about all of the fun stuff that we will be able to host here now that we're going to have a bajillion bandwidths.
And lastly, I saw your video of you racing drones. Not the one from Europe, but the one in Berkeley.
This is just the craziest thing because I've been flying FPV for the last year and a half, and that's when you put on the goggles and it's like a first-person view. We did an episode like 6 months ago about this, and it's my happy place. And I have had the unique opportunity to finally discover that this is happening in my own backyard. Like, awesome way to go, Bay Area.
That's awesome.
And it turns out every Sunday, the FPV explorers and racers, got to give a shout out to them. If you're in the San Francisco Bay Area and you are also a quadcopter, drone, UAS, UAV, multi-rotor enthusiast, you should come out to this because everybody collects together at the park in Berkeley by the marina and fly. In fact, I only discovered it because I
So
went
fun.
out there to fly like a month and a half ago, and I'm like, you know, before you turn on your video transmitter, the first thing you do is you turn on your receiver and you check your channel to make sure nobody else is transmitting on it.
Right.
Now, of course, what are the slim chances of that, especially in the weird backwoods that I fly? But I did because it's the right thing to do, and I was very surprised to see that, oh, there's somebody flying on this frequency. And I go to the next, and on this one, and I go to the next, and on this one, wait a second, and I
What?
look up and I hear the distinct sound of a multi-rotor, and I run over there, I'm like, hey guys, can I play too?
That's so cute.
Yeah, so I competed for the first real time, I guess you could say, just yesterday.
Cool.
I was in 4 heats. I took first in 2
What?
of them.
Awesome.
And-
Congrats.
And DNF in the other 2 because I smashed into pylons. But I put a video on the channel. It's so much fun. I'm excited to be competing next Sunday. So by the time you watch this next Sunday, in the Game of Drones.
What?
Yes, they've got
Game of Drones.
Yeah, it's going to be in Oakland. They've got races. They've got a cage match.
Whoa.
Yeah, 2 drones enter, 1 leaves. Oh yeah.
I'm assuming you're doing that too?
No. have you seen Snowflake
I've
or
seen
whatever
your
her name is?
Snowflake. Oh my gosh.
I know. I need
the
to get a really
girliest name for a
diminutive.
drone.
It's 240 grams. Most other quadcopters in this 250 class are like 700 grams. I'm like a third of the weight of most of these guys, and I can't believe it won anything. Turns out if you're the last man standing, though, all you have to do is complete the course.
Oh.
One epic thing. You know what? We're running long. I want to talk about direct sequence sped spread spectrum. See, I should definitely save it for next week because I can't pronounce.
Direct sequence
spread
spectrum.
Can we just say DSSS?
Sure, that works for me.
Yeah, it's a signal technique
Can I-
used in Wi-Fi.
Can I talk about my Pop-Tart cat?
Let's get into Pop-Tart cats, and next week we'll talk about radio horizon and diodes and hacking transmitters to do fun things, while at the same time staying legal with the FCC. But first, we're gonna take a quick break. Isn't that Greg? What? Was that Greg? Yeah, he agrees.
Yeah, a break. Okay.
Doesn't matter if you're a fan of Greg the Dinosaur or the Nyan Cat. For whichever reason you watch Hak5, when you have great ideas, you know what you need to do? I know, you need to get them online instantly. You need to take them from your brain and into the interwebs, and there is no service that can do it faster, more efficiently, or more epically awesomenessly than Domain.com. I've told you guys about Domain.com. They have that domain discovery system where your ideas will just bloop bloop onto the web in like no time. It's really fantastic service. We've been using them for the longest time. They've been supporting the show for the longest time because they're huge fans of Hak5. They've got, they just make it a fun place to do business because they're affordable, they're reliable, they're easy to use, but mostly you can tweet them at Domain.com and see they're crazy enough to support us, which is just crazy in of itself. So you should support them, and they have hooked you up. They have. With the coupon code, it's HAK5. It spells Hak5, and you can use it at Domain.com's checkout to get an extra 15% off. So when you think domain names, think Domain.com. The beaches of Normandy would never be the same without the code-breaking power of the Colossus and its shift registers. But today, shift registers can be used to make rainbows come out of cats' butts. Right, Shannon?
Yes, you are correct, sir.
It's all pixely and everything.
It's very pixely. So this thing...
I've been watching your segments while abroad, and it has been fun.
I've been
Actually,
building
you're
on top of them. I've been building on top of them for every single Arduino segment. And this week, or I guess I started building this last week, I found this thing on Instructables, and it was written by OTB Paintball. It's basically called a RainBoard. So he takes an Arduino Uno, powers it up with a 12-volt wall adapter, and then he's able to light up all these little strips. So I ran into some complications and stuff, and since all of this is already in Instructables, I'm not going to go over the tutorial or the code because it's there for you.
Sure.
But I wanted to talk about my experience with it.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing, is we can learn from each other's experiences and then hopefully not make the same mistakes or build on them, and next thing you know, you've got Pop-Tart cats. So,
so first off, check your breadboards, because apparently I had a borked breadboard, and I posted a picture on Instagram, and I was like, why are only half of my LEDs lighting up? And all these people were like, it's a power issue, power. And I was like, it can't be a power issue. I bought the correct power supply. What the heck is going on? And then like some random guy, and he called himself a noob, and I was like, you're not a noob. Everybody is a noob at something. He goes, maybe it's the breadboard? And I was like, it can't be the breadboard. I just bought this thing.
well, I mean, you know what it is. It's like you
frickin' breadboard.
You replace everything until you've got nothing left, and then you're
Yes!
like, oh.
So
well,
I
that's
replaced
why.
a bunch of wires because I thought my wiring was incorrect, still had the same issue. So eventually I replaced the breadboard and rewired everything, which took like an hour.
Okay, so
it was the breadboard.
Can you break it down for me? What exactly am I looking at? What are these components and how are they working together?
So first off, you have all these LED strips. It's not actually a big square. It's actually a long strip of cable that looks like that. So those can be broken into, I stole them from you, sorry. So these are the color 50/50 RGB LED strips. You can get them off Amazon for like $25 a strip. And one of these will give them
direct from China.
Yeah, I need to find that website.
Yeah.
So apparently, $25 on Amazon. It comes with plenty to do this build, and you can have plenty left just in case you break them. It's really fragile. I ended up breaking a bunch of these because you have to solder them on to little breakaway points at the bottom.
Oh,
There's 4
so
points.
yeah, I get it. So the trick with these is you have to cut them in 3.
Cut them in little 3s,
Right.
yeah.
'Cause
And
that's
they
the
have
way
little
that they
solder
speak.
points, so you can see with the little gold plates at the end.
Yeah, look at that.
And each
solder
one
point.
has these 4 points. So you have G for green, R for red, and then B for blue, and then there's the 12 volts for the 4 little pins. So you want to cut each one wherever you see the pins, and then you have to solder on these breakaway little headers. And
That just
soldering
makes it
them
easier to put it on your breadboard.
Yeah, it was pretty easy. So I was able to stick them in my breadboard, but I noticed if I put them all in the same row, it was impossible to stick them in because they couldn't fit next to each other. So I had to place them one pin in front of the other. which was kind of annoying, or one in front
Sure.
of the other,
Okay.
next to each other.
It works.
So that was a slight issue that I ran into, and I broke quite a few of these because they're very fragile at the end. If you bend them too far, they won't work. So
Yeah,
this one
and
doesn't
as
work.
As we've also noticed, you can't also, it is flexible, the
you shouldn't
50/50
do
LED
that.
stuff, but you shouldn't do that
Yeah.
because these stresses, we have these all over the Hak5 warehouse for our rave nights.
I also had to get the shift registers for this, the DIPs, or dual inline processor. I'll come back to that
Wait,
in a bit.
you're talking about this chip right here?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was just for the power. I thought that was just to shift the power.
These are for
No?
power,
Oh,
and
okay.
those run the LEDs all together.
Yeah, I was doing some reading on the shift registers.
It's weird.
And it's really interesting the way that it's basically just like, if you give it a 1 and then you come back around and it'll come back as a 2.
Yeah.
In binary.
So
it's,
with all these components together and all the fun stuff and the shift registers, I had to buy all those because I didn't have any. Everything costs about $100 if you don't have anything. If you already have the Arduino, the wires, and the breadboards, then you'll come out to like $50 for everything.
Still, it's really cool.
The LEDs cost
What
the
I
most.
love here is that you're building on what we were talking about when the last time I was here in studio, which was about fading LEDs and how
Yes.
they don't actually, it's not varying the voltage, it's actually the pulse width modulation.
Yeah, and that was so fun because I was able to use it again. I didn't have to write the code for this one, but you can see it in the code for this one as well. You notice it whenever I pointed a camera at it, and I posted that video on my Instagram as well. You can see the flashing for the pulse width modulation of these. So the reason why we're using PWM again for this is to quickly change the amount of light given off by each of the different LEDs in the strip. And because each color of the LED is at a different frequency, or a different wavelength, if we use PWM to fade from one color to the next, it'll look like a rainbow, because it's going to have to go through the different wavelengths of each and every different
So
color
that's
in the
actually
rainbow.
how you address each of these individual LEDs to
Yeah.
be red, green, or blue, or some combination therein, is you're actually just changing the PWM value that they're receiving.
Yeah. Isn't that
That's cool. That is so cool.
So to make each and every one of these strips, there's 15 total strips. Each one go in sync. We have to use the shift registers.
I get it. You've got an R, a G, and
Yeah.
a B. So you're going through the gamut of your PWM
One,
for the red,
and
then
then
the
the
green,
next.
then the blue, and
Yeah.
and when you mix it properly, it kind of creates that rainbow
It creates
effect.
that rainbow. It's so cool looking. And then with the shift registers, and those are the little guys, the little smaller, I guess the little black things on there.
Your little
They
ICs.
look like little bugs. Those will fill up each and every different channel of each of the strips with ones and zeros for the data of the colors that you're going to be using. Once it fills up, it goes on to the next one, the next strip. And then after that, it'll fill up and go on to the next strip. So it's repeating the same cycle for each of the strips, and it's just doing it in a kind of clock formation, so each one will change right after the next.
Right, because you've got
with a slight
you've got
delay.
your clock input, which is actually telling it at which
Yeah.
cycle to speak, and then you've got your lock, which is the other
Yes.
pin that's going to tell it, hey, I'm about to talk to you, here's your new value, and now I'm done talking to you.
Exactly. It's so cool. And then the last thing that we had to use are these things, the bigger registers, I guess you would call them. They're called ULN 2803s. And
That's
those
the IC.
handle the power. So these are the DIP thingies. So the LEDs run off of 12 volts, which is kind of weird for an Arduino, but it works. Shift registers run off of 5 volts. That can be a problem since there's two different voltages that you have to use. So it feeds 12 volts into the Arduino through the voltage in, VIN port or pin on the Arduino Uno. And then it feeds it out to the LEDs through the voltage input. And then the shift registers control the ULNs through the breadboard connections on here. Yay, wiring.
You know, that's actually a very common thing in electronics.
And I've never done it before, but it was
like,
cool.
Yeah, different components want different voltages, and you're constantly like bringing it up, taking it down. Every time you do that, there's
Yeah.
losses involved, and then that generates heat and things of that nature. So there's like a lot of like really awesome science that goes into like how are we going to most effectively use this power, and this is why
Yeah.
you see common things like 5 volt and 12 volt rails as they were on power supplies in PC computers. For the same reason.
Yeah, it was cool being able to use these things in, I guess, concurrently together, because I've never been able to do that before. So I was able to learn a lot about why you would use shift registers and why you would use these dual inline packaging products as opposed to like a whole bunch of different wires. So dual inline packaging is when you have a product like this. It's a little, you know,
it's an IC.
ULN IC. Yeah, IC, exactly. That's the word I was looking for.
Circuit.
So it basically means that you have a bunch of different pins on here. I believe this one is 18.
Yeah, so
and
that's
you
the
count
package
from,
type.
Yeah, it's the package type. So you count from pin 1 all the way down to pin 18, and you have a bunch of different pins that you can use for all your different code.
It's very similar to what you have on your breadboard. It's just that it's been condensed down into one integrated circuit.
Exactly.
Hence the integratedness of that. Very cool stuff. You know, that same power thing that you were talking about, 12 volts and 5 volts, I do the same exact thing with, where did it go? It's not in my bag. With my goggles, which require 12 volts, and I like to power them off of USB.
Ah, yes.
And so to achieve that, oh man,
runs
did
away.
I lose my cable? I lost my cable.
We'll find your cable.
I'm gonna have a problem.
It's okay. You're doing spring cleaning. You'll be fine.
No, I need that cable to fly. But
This
anyway.
was also the first time I had to add a library to my Arduino IDE, which was
Oh.
kind of weird, but it's easy.
Yeah,
Like
how do
you
you do
just,
that?
if somebody already has the library available, you just download the zip file, you extract it into your Arduino documents folder, and then it shows up in your IDE, and it just shows up under examples.
Yeah,
And once you
and
put
then
an
at the very
example
top,
under
you've got,
there,
like, a
it shows
time
up as
include?
RainBoard. It's like magic.
Oh,
So now I
okay,
have
example.
it,
Sorry.
yeah, now I have it
Yes,
saved
I
as an
get it now.
example in my folder. And then when you open up the code, it's actually really short for all the craziness that's happening here, but it's pretty much just in charge of the brightness, changing the brightness and the flow depending on the
This
clock time.
Looks very similar to what you did before, making the LED
It is.
pulse.
Except this time I'm running 15 different lines of code instead of, or 15 different strips of LEDs instead of just
Well,
one.
once you've learned how to do it in serial, now do it many times and call it parallel. And then once that's fast enough, then condense that back down to serial and then do it again. And then lather and
yay.
repeat.
So it was cool. It was
that's
really, really fun.
epic.
And I was happy that it worked for me, even though I had an issue with the breadboard. Stupid breadboard.
Happens.
But hey, yeah,
Cool.
it happens.
Well, that is pretty awesome. If you guys have some feedback, you can, of course, leave it in the comments or send us email feedback@hak5.org. Let us know what other kind of man-catty goodness you'd
I
like
should
to
build
see.
a case.
Yeah, that would be good. A
I
little
build a
picture
case?
frame or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, I like it. And with that, we're going to take a quick break. But when we get back, it's Technologist Photo of the Week.
It is now time for the trivia question of the week. Last week's trivia question was, most modern TVs draw power even if they are turned off. The circuit the power is used in does what function when the TV is actually in use? And the answer is simply remote controls, because obviously that needs to stay plugged in if you want to turn it on eventually. So this week's trivia question is, what frequency range is the high frequency band? And you can answer that over at hak5.org/trivia to win some awesome Hak5 goodies.
That just about wraps up this week's episode of Hak5. Before we get going, just wanted to remind you guys all of the ways that you can support all of the cool things we're doing here at the Hak5 warehouse, including just tuning in, sharing, liking, subscribing, all of that jazz. You heard it before, you know the drill. But also, I want to remind you guys that Shannon is doing epic stuff with Patrick Norton over on
Oh, yeah, I
TechThing.
am.
You are. Yes, you host that, Shannon.
tekthing.com is where you can find all the infos about that. We're doing everything via Patreon, so if you like TechThing, please consider being one of our patrons. It helps us pay our
Yes.
bills.
And you know, it ain't nothing but a tech thing. You know who else is doing that here at the studio? We're very excited to hopefully bring you guys another amazing round of Metasploit Minute. Got to get Mubix down here because Mondays would not be the same without a little bit of
Agreed.
Metasploit Minute. So check that out. It's all on the Hak5 channel on YouTube. It's all on hak5.org. That's where you can find the ways to follow us.
He's
and
on
subscribe
Patreon,
and
too.
all of that good stuff.
I'm a patron.
Check out our new follow page. It has all the goodies.
And hak5.org/follow. You just
Yeah, I
said
just
that.
said that. Yeah, have you seen the new page? It looks
No.
good. You're going to like it. I think you will.
What was I going to say? Oh, feedback@hak5.org. So you can email us your questions and comments or what you want me to see building my Pop-Tart cats. Many, many cats. I want to make it speak now.
We could do that. I have some other ideas, but yeah, send your ideas. By.
HAKshop.com is where you can support
you get
Hak5.
some goodies. We've got all sorts of new fun bundles and good stuff over
Oh,
there.
we
so
do?
check that out. Yeah.
Yay.
You know, with the technical
Oh, I saw the
elite
new
bag. Is
bag.
like, yeah. That was my gear bag through all of
Seriously?
Europe. Yeah.
Wow.
That's all I needed,
Okay, impressive.
That and a Deuter. But yes, anyway. With all that, I'm Darren Kitchen.
I'm Shannon Morse.
We're reminding you to trust your technolust.
I'm so hungry.
Shannon, don't eat the pop. It's not a real Pop-Tart.
I really like Pop-Tarts.